She was rejected from the very beginning. Too small, too fragile, never enough. The wealthy family that hired her treated her like she didn't matter, and their entitled guests laughed as she fell into a pool, soaked and humiliated. But fate had other plans, and when a quiet blacksmith named Elias saw what no one else did, everything changed. Just wait until you see how this overlooked girl turned her story around, and why justice, in the end, didn't just arrive, it stood tall beside her. Lillian Moore was born too early and too small. She weighed just over a pound when the doctors placed her in the incubator. No one said anything for several long minutes. Then, finally, someone whispered, "She might not make it." Her mother didn't. Her father didn't stay. By the time Lillian was 2 weeks old, she had no family left. Not by tragedy, by choice. She wasn't what people expected. Too small, too fragile, too quiet. And when the caseworker asked relatives if anyone would take her in, they answered with polite refusals and downcast eyes. "It's better for her to go where she can get help," one of them said. She entered the foster system before she ever opened her eyes. As she grew, the world kept reminding her she was less. Less than average, less than expected, less than enough. By 16, she was still under 5 feet tall. Her spine curved slightly. Her hearing wasn't great. Her wrists were thin as pencils, and people often assumed she was a child. She got used to the stares, the ones that lingered too long, or worse, the ones that passed right through her. She learned early not to expect kindness, especially when she took a nanny job in Central Texas, hired by a wealthy family in a gated community. The mother smiled too wide. The father didn't look at her. "You're just the right size to keep up with a toddler," the woman said, laughing as if it was a compliment. But what they really meant was, "You're invisible. You're cheap. You won't complain." And she didn't. Not when they changed her schedule without asking. Not when they gave her a corner of the laundry room to sleep in. Not even when their son, no older than 5, threw toys at her and screamed when she tried to correct him. She cleaned it up, every time. Until one night at the family's backyard party, she was carrying a tray of glasses. A group of teenagers surrounded the pool, laughing too loud. One of them, tall, confident, entitled, spun too fast and slammed into her. The tray went flying. She stumbled and fell straight into the deep end. The cold hit her like a slap, but the laughter hit harder. "Oh my God, she's like a pocket person," one girl laughed. "Somebody get her floaties." She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She didn't even speak. She climbed out, soaking wet, face blank, picked up the tray and walked back toward the house, shoes squishing with every step. No one offered her a towel. No one said sorry. No one remembered her name. And still she stayed, because where else was she supposed to go? The next morning there was a knock at the door. Not a loud one, not angry, just steady. 3 soft knocks, then silence. Lillian opened it halfway. She expected to see one of the children asking for breakfast, or worse, the woman of the house ready with a list of complaints. But it was someone else, a man, tall, quiet, still as the wind just before a storm. His jacket was worn at the edges, his boots were dusted with earth, and his eyes, dark, steady, watched her not like she was strange, but like she was real. He said only one thing: "You didn't shiver." Lillian blinked, unsure if she heard him right. "Last night, you fell in, and you didn't shiver. People usually do." His voice was calm. No pity in it, no judgment, just observation, just truth. She stepped back, unsure what to say. But he didn't move closer. He just looked at her with a quiet kind of concern, the kind that didn't try to fix anything, just wanted to understand. "I saw what happened," he said, and I saw what didn't. He introduced himself, Elias River. He wasn't part of the neighborhood, didn't wear a name tag, didn't carry business cards. He lived on the edge of town, near the tree line, on land that had belonged to his family since before the maps had names. Lillian asked the only question that made sense. "Why are you here?" His answer was simple.
"Because I don't like seeing people treated like they're not people." She didn't trust him. Not yet, not fully. But something inside her, a part she'd hidden for years, stirred. Not hope, not yet, just awareness. The kind of awareness that comes when, after years of silence, someone finally says your name right. That afternoon, Elias came back, this time with something in his hands, a paper bag. Inside was warm fry bread wrapped in a napkin. He didn't ask to come in, just handed it to her, nodded, and left. The next day he showed up again, with gloves. "Do you want to walk?" he asked. "There's a quiet place behind the ridge. It's not far." She hesitated, then followed. They didn't talk much on that walk, just the sound of birds and soft grass under their shoes. But the silence between them wasn't heavy. It wasn't the kind that made her feel small. It was peaceful. In that clearing, surrounded by tall trees and open sky, Elias told her stories about his grandmother, who used to say that some spirits choose the smallest vessels because they know those are the strongest ones. He said it casually, like it was an old saying, but Lillian remembered it. She remembered every word. Elias never made Lillian feel small. Not once. Not when he stood beside her with his tall frame casting shadows across the porch. Not when he lifted heavy crates like they were empty. Not even when she asked simple questions about the forge, the land, or his stories. He answered everything like it mattered, because to him, it did. He lived on old land, worked with fire, and believed in effort. And when Lillian showed up to help, quiet, observant, curious, he made space for her. At first, she watched from the side. She organized tools, took inventory, repaired labels on worn jars of metal polish. When she noticed that the ledger Elias kept was full of scribbled notes and lost invoices, she offered to help. By the end of the week, she digitized his entire system. By the end of the month, he was getting more orders than ever before. At night, they'd sit on the back steps of the workshop and drink coffee. She started sketching little designs, not for blades or tools, but for logos, signs, little touches. One evening, she showed him a symbol she drew. A feather, tiny but anchored in an iron ring. He stared at it for a long time, then said softly, "That's what I want people to remember when they buy from me." And so it became their mark. It wasn't long before people began to notice. At local fairs, Lillian stood beside their booth, notebook in hand, answering questions, taking orders. She wasn't hidden anymore. She wasn't in the background. And people listened when she spoke. But the real shift came on a Saturday in early spring. They were at an outdoor market just outside of town. Elias was hammering out a new piece in front of a small crowd, and Lillian was arranging a display of hand-wrapped tools. She wore a handmade linen apron, her hair tied back with a band she'd sewn herself. That's when she heard it, the voice she'd once tried to forget. "Wait, is that?" She looked up. A familiar group stood across the road, a cluster of young people from the gated community, the ones who used to laugh behind her back, the ones who never used her name. Among them was the boy who'd pushed her near the pool. He didn't recognize her right away, but she saw the moment he did. His eyes widened, not with guilt, not even with shame, with disbelief, because the girl they'd dismissed, the one they'd overlooked, was now standing in full view, and she wasn't hiding. Elias stepped beside her, wiping his hands on a cloth. He noticed the group, and for a long moment didn't say a word. Then, calmly, he put his hand on Lillian's shoulder. "You good?" he asked. She nodded once, and they went back to work. That night, as the sun sank behind the hills, Elias turned to her and said, They didn't deserve you then. They don't understand you now, but I do." Lillian didn't reply. She didn't need to, because for the first time in her life, she believed it. Lillian never planned on staying, but she didn't leave. It started with quiet mornings, coffee on the porch, sketching while Elias worked the forge. Her name was finally spoken, not just remembered, but respected. She rebuilt the business with him, piece by piece. He handled the fire. She handled everything else. The logo she once drew, the feather inside the iron ring, became their mark, their brand, their story. Orders came in from people who didn't know her past, but could feel the strength in her work. One evening, Elias took her to a ridge overlooking their land. He didn't say much, just held out a ring, forged by his hands, engraved with a single line: "Takes nothing, gives all." They married beneath a tree, with no crowd, no noise, just the wind, the earth, and each other. And she was happy, not in a fairy tale way, in a real way. She didn't become someone else, she just became free. And the world, the one that once looked past her, had no choice now but to see.